You ever feel like a tiny little fish in a real big pond? You will in Foxhole. This is a different kind of beast. It's top down for starters, and it's on a scale very few games have come close to. Every single item, from the trenches you're fighting in to the bullets you're firing, have to be made by the players. Supplies for building defenses need to be delivered to engineering units to make the fortifications. Infantry need guns and ammo, and medics will plow through bandages and other first aid items on an active front.
Bandages here.
It's as close to a fully simulated digital war between players as any game has ever gotten. The Colonials and the Wardens duke it out in never-ending combat until one of them earns enough victory points to win by controlling all the towns in a sector. Then the war starts all over again. The overall tech level is roughly that of World War II, but each faction starts with only base level weapons and such unlocked to make for their dudes on the line. The faction as a whole works towards upgrading their army's tech tree to build out the perfect fighting force for taking and holding ground. By the later days of the war, provided you're not getting steamrolled, you'll have access to weapons with better performance, more abundant aid supplies, and various base and defensive upgrades that'll help your faction project their power more effectively. This really gives it a kind of life that even PlanetSide 2 with its combined arms, assaults, and infantry charges can never reach, but they do share a little bit of soul. In games that have battles on this scale, you really won't see one guy, no matter how good, make a huge difference. But it also means that just being on the line is helping. If you suppress a gunner for long enough that someone gets a grenade in there to take care of him, that counts. You don't need to be a pub star to make a difference in a fight where each side is going to suffer thousands of casualties before it ever tips one way or the other. That may chase some gamers off, but it also gives it a sense of community to each victory and loss. One or two riflemen who aren't the greatest shots won't feel like dead weight, since the main goal in the trench is just to shoot more than the other guys to allow an advance to happen. Here on Ableshard, the giant world server that this little war is taking place on, I'm a Colonial. We're squaring up with the Wardens on the second, going on third, week of war that has so far cost the players over 1 million lives, and frankly, it's a pretty stable front. Meat Grinder doesn't even begin to describe the fight to take trench lines from one another. Bayonets are mandatory if available, and gas masks are serious lifesavers when everyone's chucking mustard gas into each other's MG net. We spawn into our home island, where our HQ is located, along with a training course for the newcomers. There's also a map to show you the state of the war, and a deployment center which can take you to any friendly relic or town base on the map. Once you choose which hellhole, town base you're going to call home for your stint on the front, you can grab a gun and a mag or two, then head for the sounds of battle. Something you'll learn early is that nobody survives long on the front, so don't carry a lot. The weight of fire being traded is heavy, and once you're into the meat of the war, the layered defenses are brutal to fight through. Trenches, MG nests, AT pillboxes, and a whole lot of barbed wire lay between you and the enemy, and it can take days to finally break a well-organized line. The community also does a great job of working around the language barriers with one another. You'll have 4 different languages shouting out orders and targets, with a handful of players basically interpreting to make sure all the info is getting passed around. It's really refreshing to see a game with a community this focused on working together to tackle a single objective and not on chasing stats. Our little Colonial trooper has gotten his feet under him in battle, and even made a few successful advances. We haven't learned any logistics yet, but there's always time for that later. So we're switching gears here, because I'm thinking the best way to show off what Foxhole does is just document our soldiers' tour through the later days of 115. I didn't join the war until lines were already established. Dropped into Lockheed area on day 330 and joined the 15-day-long stalemate that had no sign of stopping. After 2 days with no movement in either direction, I tagged along with another group heading out to reinforce Iron Junction. The bridge was out, keeping all of our armor stuck on the south bank, leaving Artie as our only real combat support for the boots on the other side. I decided no better time than now to learn to build instead of destroy, so I hammered away while our infantry mustered and charged to buy us a couple of minutes and a few yards of breathing space. We held the line, but the bridge did end up going down again. We got enough infantry and armor across to get eyes on the major AT emplacements and bunkers, so the artillerymen were able to deal a solid blow to the logistics and defensive capabilities on that end, but we were mostly back to where we started. As the war progressed and day 330 turned into 360 and on, I earned my way from unlabeled recruit to private with a few heroic rescues from the front line to casualty collection points, and then from private to corporal by helping get our trench lines dug out after pushing the wardens back across the water at the overland. This war seems to be a fight for bridges, and whoever can get stable infrastructure on the enemy side first has the greatest chance of taking home the flag. Our logistics guys were killing it in the east. We got a little low on ammo at one point, but a few shipments of mats and bullets turned the fight for us long enough to get some armored support into the area. We're getting close to 390 in-game days now since this popped off, or a little over 2 weeks of real time, and no one has the upper hand yet. We're seeing more and more go on in the fringes, and Tempest Island is once again connected to friendly lines in the far east, but we've only just pushed the wardens back across the bridge at the overland, and now's as good a time as any to build up a whole bunch of defenses, so we got hammering. We've broken 400 days at war. The lines are beginning to give as the Warden's relentless assault continues. All of Endless Shore was taken, we got pushed back over a few key bridges, and logistics is having trouble keeping up with the attrition rate. In the Deadlands, we got so low on ammo that people were hitting the line with empty rifles and bayonets in hopes to stab somebody and loot some bullets, and the entire east half of the front is burning a ton of ordnance trying to stall armored and naval advances. The central line continues to stagnate around the Lockheed region, while the west is left to its devices, little more than skirmishes to test one another's mettle. The back and forth continues in the Iron Stand region of the Deadlands as we take our leave from the field for the day. We return to battle on day 476 of the war, on the western end of the front. The artillery is heavy, and both sides are throwing infantry at the fight en masse with no sign of slowing down. The score still sits at 18-21 with us Colonials trailing, and the casualty count has soared past 3 million as we come out of an extremely active weekend of operations. We seem to have solidified our position everywhere aside from the bridge fights, and we've even recaptured the island surrounding Fisherman's Row. Maybe my first war is going to turn around and be a W? As we crest day 500, the course stays the same, but the fighting grows fierce. Our advance into Iron's End has stalled against a wall of concrete and wire, but the Wardens can't muster the weight to push us off their defenses, so it's become a race of who atrophies first. Our forward bases and hospitals are barely clinging to life, but we've got numbers in the area and dedicated logistics and looters to keep us equipped and stay in the fight as the sun rises over the field of the Deadlands. We're deep now. The Colonials have regained the upper hand and we're not slowing down. 29 out of 31 towns cap that we need to come out on top. It might sound out of place for a war game, but I think the highlights so far aren't taking part in big ops to push up through the moors or hanging on for dear life, hoping the line doesn't collapse in the Deadlands. It's pulling security for builders behind the front so that partisans don't chew them up before your base is garrisoned. It's scrambling to get pits dug for short-range arty and push guns before the enemy armor rolls up and just eats a newly captured region. With the Wardens in their death throes, the fighting's gonna be nasty. It happened, without me. I heard it on sigil as I awoke, on the 28th of August. Roomy eyes tired from night after night of combat with the ceaseless retort of the enemy's war machine, it happened. After a little over 1,000 in-game days, the 31st victory point was captured, slamming shut the maw of War 115. My first war with the Colonial Legion ended in a big old W.
Oh shit!
This was fun as hell, and I'm definitely hopping on with the Legion again for 116. There really is nothing else like Foxhole that I have ever played. Have fun hitting the trenches, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the Horizon Initiative.